Amazing opportunity for you to give your zakah to a cause that is unique and is going to empower those that are new to the religion. The Islamic Diversity Center is a zakat eligible organization, but we only use your zakat funds specifically to support new Muslims. These are restricted funds that only go to empowering and supporting those that are new to the religion. We have taken this position with the understanding of the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which He lists out the 8 categories of zakah. And one of those categories is those whose hearts are close to the religion, or those whose hearts are inclined to the religion. And the scholars have explained that new Muslims fall under this category. So brothers and sisters, there is a dire need to support those that are new to the religion. SubhanAllah, imagine accepting Islam, changing your entire life and your religion, and the Muslims are not there to support you. Brothers and sisters, we require your funds, your zakah, your sadaqah to support those that are new to the religion. Please donate as much as you can. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Barakatuh. Welcome to How to Raise a Better Mum with me, Abdullah. As you may notice, there's a change of background today. We're doing a DIY job. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, I wasn't able to make it to the studio. So, yes, we're doing it from home today. So I hope you don't mind, and I hope everybody can see and hear us okay. Technology is not my friend, so yes. But welcome, as I said, How to Raise a Better Mum. Usually I have my guest Mariam on, but unfortunately she couldn't make it today either. So instead I have Hafsa on. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Well, it's lovely to see you. Haven't seen you for ages.
So long.
Yes. How's your Ramadan going?
It's going fine. It's going
Yeah?
good. I find it odd because it's like we speak all the time.
Yeah, well, we do speak all the time, but we haven't spoken properly in a while. And also Hafsa, bless her, Allah reward you, has jumped in last minute as well to help me out. So Allah reward you for that. So
this is not my normal background either.
Yes, that's it. So we're just making do with what we've got today. Allah make it easy for us. So it's the last show today. I'm so sad. I've had such a good run, alhamdulillah. But we've discussed quite a few varied topics. I feel like I wish there was more time. I think 1 hour is you're just scratching the surface, but alhamdulillah, it seems to have gone well. But today we're talking about how to sustain or how to maintain relationships after having a newborn. Now, I have to say, you don't have children, so you're going to be from the perspective of, because we're going to discuss how to maintain relationships with your spouse, your family, friends. You're going to be the family and the friends, and you can give us that unique perspective of, seeing the other side, inshallah. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can get involved in the conversation. If you have any experiences to share, please get involved, comment. You can watch and comment on all IDC platforms. It's Facebook and YouTube. And our sponsor is One Nation Childcare. So we should get started. So how is your Ramadan going so far? Well, at the end now, so far, how are you feeling now that we approach the end?
I don't know. Ramadan's been different this year because I work full time. And so I've just been literally, I don't do suhoor. Suhoor is not for me. I know there's blessing in suhoor and there's barakah in suhoor, but if I don't sleep, I'm gonna get angry.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I've just been waking up, going to work, coming home, having iftar, going to Tarawih, going to sleep.
That sounds good.
That's just been my Ramadan the entire month.
That's good. Alhamdulillah.
And then doing it bad on weekends.
Allah accept it from you. Yeah. Are you looking forward to Eid?
Yeah.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
I'm actually working on Eid.
Oh no, we'll discuss that afterwards.
I can't be domestic right now. I forgot to book up annual leave and I had meetings.
Oh dear. Okay. Anyways.
Yes, how was yours been?
roller coaster, as we've kind of talked about throughout the series, especially at the first episode, how to maintain your spiritual health and iman. We talked a little about how difficult and different it is. Definitely the most difficult Ramadan, I was saying today to somebody.
I bet. Having a morsel like Abdullah. How could you not break your fast?
Yeah.
He's a little morsel.
He is a little morsel, but also he is energetic. So
yeah. There was actually Mariam called me like about 20 minutes ago, and I said, "Oh, show me Abdullah," and he'd already gone. He was out the door.
Yeah, you didn't get to see him today. He's now mobile. So yes, and I feel like towards the end, I think most people is in the middle, but towards the end, feeling a little bit run down now. So I feel myself like starting to crash a little bit, but definitely sad as always to see the end. But I read something today that it's not the end; it's the beginning of a new chapter. So inshallah, like separate from
my new beginning is going to start with tonsillitis.
Oh dear. Okay.
Yes,
we made dua for you. So anyway, so today's topic is how to maintain relationships after a newborn and relationship dynamics in general. So we're going to try and cover relationships with your spouse, with your family, with friends, with in-laws. And as I said, if you have the listeners, if you have any experiences, any advice you want to give, please share and join in the conversation. So I'm going to start off with your spouse because that's like obviously I feel like the most obvious one to start. And becoming a parent often puts a strain on these relationships, especially the one with your spouse, regardless of what they were like before. Part of the problem is that you're tired, as we mentioned, and you have much less time to spend with those loved ones than you did before the baby arrived. And this can change the dynamics of a relationship. Also things like finances can also, affect things, particularly within a marriage. And it's a lot harder to go out together, enjoy things, because even when you have a baby with you, if you somehow get a baby or childcare, you're still worried about the baby. You still, you can never really fully relax. And I think with regards to a partner, I have heard a lot, and I've felt this a little bit myself as well, that one partner may feel left out, especially like all the attention. You've gone from giving each other attention to now just giving all that attention and love to the newborn. So I think definitely something that I've heard through lots of conversations with new mums with regards to, to the topic, the emotional energy being kind of drained and being focused towards their babies. So if you're having your first baby, or if you've had your first baby, you may be feeling lonely and cut off from your old life. And a partner can't give you everything. That's why, friends and family are also really, really important, and having that support system is really important. We actually, a few years ago, I can't remember if I did it with Mariam, if she guested on the show, but we did The Empowered Wife. Have said, do you remember that? We did a show called The Empowered Wife. Fantastic book. Actually, I'm going to drop a few book recommendations / things on my TBR to be read list. And then The Empowered Wife is definitely a recommendation. Have you read it yet? Did you read it? I know you had a copy.
I read a little bit.
Yeah, an excellent book. It's The Empowered Wife.
I mean, I'm not married, so I don't need to be an empowered wife just yet.
No, it's really, really good just for like future. So like it's by Laura Doyle, The Empowered Wife. Fantastic book. Even if you don't agree or take all of it, there's everybody I've given it to, they've taken something from. And one of the things for me, I mean, there was lots of things, but one that stuck out in particular was you can't expect your husband to give you everything, especially as a female. Female friendships, female relationships are so, so important and unique. And there's some things that they can give you that your spouse can't. So to expect that from him is unrealistic and unfair. So although we're talking in this segment about your spouse, we have to remember that even though you're in this together and it is really just you and your partner, relying on your sisters or your mum or your female friendships is also really, really important. So so it is.
And just to add, sorry, I think it's sorry.
No, go for it.
I think it's lagging where I am. It's a misconception as well. I think especially because of social media. We have this assumption that your partner's your best friend, and you know what I mean. Like, but at the same time, it's like they are, but like they are there. They have a very specific role.
Yes.
You know, and I don't. And oh, I broke my chair. And I think there are people that go into marriages having those like female companions, thinking that the marriage is going to be the same and their partner's going to be the exact same, and it's not like that at all. They're biologically different, and therefore they're going to provide something completely different. And therefore, I just want to give a piece of advice to say, like, not everyone should go in with that expectation.
Yeah, 100%.
Sorry.
No, that was a really, really beautiful point. I think that's exactly, just kind of articulated exactly what I was saying. So yeah, so I think one of the most important things is really, really I know it's quite cliche about communication, but it's often said because it's true. Just communicate things with your spouse. I think that's really, really important. Your needs don't. Some people are just, they don't like to ask for help, even in that dynamic or that relationship. So asking for help, sharing how you feel. It's hard as a mom to share how you feel because it's for you. Especially if you're a new mom. It's so unique. You don't even really know how you're feeling yourself. Never mind being able to articulate and share that. But sharing whatever you can, I think, is really, really important. And understanding that you're a team. It's not about, often you see couples that are like, or you hear that, oh, well, I did this, well, I go to work. So it's a competition. It's not a competition.
It's a very dangerous game.
It's a very dangerous game. And remember, you're on the same team. Like, it's really, really important that you to remember that you are on the same team and it's not a competition. You're at home and you're doing what is more. Miriam would know the numbers. She's good with numbers about how, because there's been calculations done about how many hours it's like a full-time job plus being a mum is, and the responsibility. It just never ends, basically. That's not to say that your husband obviously going to work, he's not doing his bit either. So remember that you're a team, and I know with all hormones and lack of sleep and all that stress that comes with it, remember that whenever you feel like you're going to like bump heads, remember that you're on the same team. And I think that's really, really important. I remember once I tried to remind myself, I read a little, I could try to read a little bit beforehand. And obviously, your algorithm on your social media changes as well when it knows. So I kind of consumed a lot of that content. And that's one thing I was really, really wary of. I was like, I do not want to be one of those people that's like, well, I did this, but you do this. I do more than you, that kind of thing. But I remember once, and it was, Abdullah must have been cutting his first tooth, or it was early. I don't know what it was. I can't remember. It was early on, and we nearly got into that me versus you. And I think I saw the penny drop with him, and the penny drop with me, and then we just kind of laughed like, oh, we see there this is going, and alhamdulillah, Allahumma barik, we managed. That's not to say later on it didn't come up. I think it's natural. You're gonna bump heads because you're tired, you're exhausted, you're stressed. It's so isolating and you feel so alone. Like, I know, even though I know my husband is going and he's going to work and he is working hard to support us, it does sometimes feel lonely and isolating. And I think there can be resentment there that, right, you might be working, but at least you get to get away from this situation. You get to get out of the house. You get a change of scenery. But that's not the case, because it's still obviously very, very stressful having that responsibility of supporting your family. It's a big responsibility. And so so I think with regards to your spouse, I think, just like I said, cliches, it is communicating it, and remember, as I've said before, remembering that you're on the same team. So anything you want to add to that, Hafsa?
I think you'll both have you'll both wish that it was switched. that you were working and like, I guarantee you that, like, are we saying his name or are we just referring to him as husband?
His husband, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that husband will have times where he has early mornings that he'd be like, oh, I wish I could, because Abdullah's asleep, therefore maybe I can go to sleep. And there's things that you won't understand about his day-to-day life and he won't understand about yours. But I think it's actually just about communicating what those responsibilities are.
That's a fantastic
I think
point.
even sitting down maybe like once a week and going, how was stuff at home? Well, this happened with the lad that happened, and then with husband, how was work? Just if you familiarize yourself with each other's day-to-day life, you'll understand that, like, you're both where you need to be. But also from an Islamic perspective, there's no such thing as equality, there's equity. There's certain things that you can do as his mom that husband can't do.
You've hit Alama Barak, so many good points. I can't even remember all of them.
Thank you.
This one was grass is always greener on the other side. Yes. Sometimes I think, oh, I wish I could just go to work. Going to work seems so much easier. And I know he said, well, I'd love to stay home and look after Abdullah. So grass is always greener. So that is a very good point. And that's not to say that the grass may look greener, but it might not actually be greener.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other point that you made was sharing your day-to-day, communicating. So I was going to say, even though everything that we say, as I've said in the previous shows, it's easier said than done. And doing this show here and we're sharing, but that's not to say even I followed this advice. This is just sharing what I've learned and hopefully really benefiting from it. So like I said, easier said than done, but like you said, sharing day to day. And what I did was what I saw with couples like online. If my room was here, she'd be like, shouldn't follow social media. But from what I saw, the little bits that I saw, there was a trend of like, not really a trend, but just like a bit of advice knocking about that, every week sit down as a couple and just have like, like an informal, just catch up, like exactly what you just said, sharing your day to day, this, that, the other. Because I think doing it on a daily basis, just from my view, is so unrealistic because you've been at work, he's been at work all day, you've been with the baby all day. At the end of the day, your brain is just like mashed potato, like it's not open. But every so often, if you can do that, like go for a walk or have some time, I'm just trying to think of where you could fit it in. Walks, we did a few walks. That was quite good. Oh, actually, going for a drive. That is the thing.
Yeah, and getting a drive-through drink or something.
Getting a drive-through drink. That's what we did because
like a Coke.
They usually opened late. So it doesn't matter like, if it's late, he's come back from work or babies are usually up during the night or whatever. It helps the baby sleep, as we mentioned in last week's show, driving around. And I know a few times when Abdullah was just not settling, we shot him in the car, drive around, get ourselves a drink. He would fall asleep. Everyone's in there. So just finding those moments really, just where, like you said, you can share, because people aren't mind readers. That's works both way, men and women, husband and wife. They're not mind readers, and sometimes we expect not just our spouses, just people generally to know what we're thinking. And it's not the case. It's not the case at all. We really have to learn to first have that self-awareness so that we know what we want to share. Also being able to share it as well. And I know for some people it's quite difficult. It is quite difficult to ask for help. But in this situation, you're on survival, so you need all the help you can get. There's no shame in asking for help, especially from like your spouse who's partner in crime. What were you going to say?
I just wanted to add that I think it's also sorry, I've been at work all day, I can't even speak. It's also an obligation on us to learn about the opposite gender. So like we always talk about the fact that there's an obligation upon us to know the haqq about our deen and to learn and to do our own research. But we also have responsibilities in other aspects, and we also need to learn that our spouse doesn't work the same way as us. And if you've read like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus by John Gray, there's a whole chapter called Men Are Like Rubber Bands, where like if you like stretch yourself out, and like basically give your spouse, your male spouse, your husband in this context, I'd say, space, they have that time to ping back, and they'll ping back even better and brighter and happier. But if you're constantly kind of like, because you know when your spouse needs space, if you're constantly still there, they'll pull away in other ways that could be more unhealthy.
My initial reaction, my emotional reaction to that when I heard that was, well, no, actually, this is not a time for space because you're on survival and it's an intense situation.
Yes,
but actually, when I like processed it, I'm like, actually, that's true, because if one of us is fresher, then, so if I give if we're both burnt out, we're no use, basically. So allowing each other space and time for a bit of respite, well, either way, both ways, I think it's really, really important, because like I said, if we're both burnt out and we're just at each other all the time, then it's not good for us, our relationship, which I guess what we're talking about, but also with the upbringing of the child. Exactly. So definitely, I think that's a really good point.
And plus, what will happen is at the end of the day, the husband will have to pull back eventually. And at the end of the day, he will pull back because he'll need that space for his own capacity. But it's about you recognizing it and doing it the healthiest way to accommodate him.
Yeah, and then that way, when he's feeling fresh, he can do the same for you.
You
get your break, you get your space. He can take the child, the Abdullah or the baby, whatever, and give you space and that support, so you can have time for yourself, whether it be a walk, whether it be a shower, or just having a meal in peace, or having a nap. Like I said, it's hard. It's easier said than done, like I said, and it's easy to say now I've passed that initial stage. When you're in that stage, it's quite hard not to just snap at each other when your hormones are everywhere, and you're, like I said, you're exhausted and you're emotional and you're in physical, pain as well. But hopefully, like, if we can remember these things, then inshallah it might benefit us. So the next point we're going to get onto is, this is kind of your area more so because you are a new auntie, is how to maintain relationships with your family. So as an auntie to two
babies.
Yeah, and you said
2 days apart.
2 days apart, Allahumma barik. How do you feel dynamics changed?
Sorry, I'm just resting you down so I don't have to hold it.
No problem.
I think that
mum and family.
Sorry, say that again.
How do you feel dynamics changed between mum and family? Mum being mum and family being family.
I think that is like dependent, like, on the family. I think it depends on the relationship you have with the person having the child.
Yeah,
and I feel like with you and with our other sibling who had a baby, the nature in terms of, like, for example, how much time I spend and your routines and how, like, when you have like multiple siblings, sometimes you see one more often than the other. It's just because you're all adults and routines are routines.
Yeah, very much.
So I think I'd only speak on behalf of Abdullah in this context because it's your show. I was like, I remember when you told us you were pregnant, and it did surprise me or shock me. It felt very natural, and people will like often ask the question like, oh, like, how did you feel when a newborn came in and all that kind of stuff? But I think people forget that you were pregnant for 9 months. We already knew mentally that it was like Abdullah was here without being here for 9 months.
That's interesting.
So when he was here, it wasn't new because he'd already been in our lives for 9 months.
Even though, yes, it does to an extent, but obviously him being actually present is just like a whirlwind.
Of course, but let's look at the context of you during pregnancy. We have to look after you in some regard, right?
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
make sure that you're taken care of, and then you give birth, and inshallah, alhamdulillah, when you get better, that care and that nurturing you'll be doing for 9 months just immediately just goes into
Yeah.
the child. So for me, it was natural. I mean, I've never really been a baby kind of person,
Yeah.
but like when Abdullah came, oh my
Yeah.
God,
Yeah, that
yeah,
I did see a change.
like
Do you think that there
yeah,
was a change in our relationship, whether with, especially at the beginning with or whether that be like time giving to each other, how much we socialized, how much we spoke to each other? Do you think there was a change there? Because obviously we're trying to give advice here, but we're speaking, it's all anecdotal, so we're talking from our own experiences. I'm sure everybody else's experiences will be different.
no, I think that our relationship changed in like a good way. Like I think like we, it's hard to explain, but like it was like we've always been sisters and we've always looked out for each other and we've always done everything together. But it's like suddenly you were a team. It's like you do this and I'll do this and you do this and I'll do this, and it was like it kind of a baby brings closeness,
That's a
never
fantastic
separation.
point. That's a
Especially our routine where I was doing nights and then you were doing mornings when I went to work, and like
yeah, we tag teamed it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
think that like that helped a lot.
that's a fantastic point, actually. Allah Mubarak, once again, he smashed it. The babies bring people together. That's a really good point, because despite all the difficulties and the tension and the change that a baby can bring, it does usually, inshallah, bring people together. And that is in regard to any of these kind of relationships, whether that be, like I said, with your spouse or with your family or, you know, friends, etc. So yeah, so I think that's a brilliant point. Is there anything that you think would encourage more closeness between a mum and their family? Not necessarily us, just generally from your point of view.
Encourage closeness.
Yeah, or like yeah, that's yes,
It's
closeness.
going to sound really cliche, but
Different ways.
communication. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, go on. Communication,
No,
yeah.
no, no. Finish what you're saying, and then I'll go on from that.
I was gonna say, I was just repeating what I said, so improving the relationship. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think communication, like for example, I know that there might be like tensions where like a grandma wants a certain amount of time with the baby and the mom knows the baby, and the grandma might want to do certain things with the baby and the mom's like, no, I know my baby and I don't think that's right. But a lot of the time, like it's not really communicated. And there's very little like here and there's like, no, no, don't do that. And there's no explanation.
Well, that's actually a very, very good
And I
point.
don't think that was a thing with our family. I think we're all quite communicative with each other, but I've heard stories where that's happened, where
Yeah.
like if you communicate and like if you say, please don't do this because X, Y, and Z, or if you like sit with like grandma and be like, or like mom and be like, how are you feeling about this? I think that's really important because a lot of the times tensions are so high, people aren't talking to each other. There's 4 people just assuming that they know what's best with this baby, and they're going, I know what's best, so I'm going to do this. And I will say the most important thing, the one thing I will never back down on is listen to the mother.
Yeah.
I don't understand when people don't listen to the mother. It's like that child came out of them. They're the closest thing. Like,
I guess it's
you
because
know,
they're raised, like they've already done the job of raising kids, so they do assume. But like it's like you said, every child is different and every
100%.
experience is unique. So yeah, listening to the mother. That's not to say that the advice isn't useful, but actually that really segues beautifully into the next relationship we are going to talk about, sorry, which is in-laws. But actually now I'm thinking about it, the dynamics of if you have in-laws, whether you live in a joint family or you don't, is actually very similar now you say it to grandparents, because actually a lot of the time it's the
Yeah,
same. Dealing with in-laws, I think dealing with in-laws can be trickier, obviously, because they're
100%.
not your family, and that can be tricky when you're having a baby as well. Whether it's like they disapprove of your parenting style, because obviously from year to year things are changing all the time. New research is coming out. Things are a lot different to when you know
Mhm.
their children were small.
Yeah,
They were raising their children,
yeah.
or unsolicited advice, or
Mhm.
you know giving
Yeah,
them or screen time, that kind of thing. It
Yeah.
can get quite tricky. And while you might have the odd awkward moment with your in-laws pre-baby over your plans for, like, I don't know, holidays or whatever it may
Mm,
be, having a child, I think, can cause a lot more.
mm,
Because now they have a new role as your child's grandparents. It's different dynamics have changed, and they may feel like they can, like, get involved a little bit more, which is
yeah.
nice. It is nice, but you also undoubtedly have things you disagree with, and that's why I think the tension comes.
Mm,
So inshallah, I think, like you said, that does apply to both sets of grandparents, I think. And it is just them often just trying to help with good intentions.
mm,
But we'll talk about in-laws first because that is a bit of a
yeah.
trickier situation. Like when it's your own mum or your own mum, if your own parents, depending on
Yeah.
your relationship, generally speaking, you can speak a little bit more openly with them. But I
Mm,
think when it comes to in-laws, it can be a little bit trickier. So I think the first tip, and I know that these again, I say this every time. I know it's easier said than done. You okay?
yeah. Sorry, I've got to work.
Be kind. If you started going over how much they're irritating you in your head and going over it again and again, remember your hormones are going, you're tired.
Mm,
And if you do decide to speak to them about things, which is good, communication, like we said, it might come out. Sometimes it can come out the wrong way, let's just say, just because
yeah.
of the nature of the state that you're in. So instead, try and just take a deep breath and balance out the problems with the nice things, pros and cons, and think about all the things you appreciate,
Mm,
whether that be, them giving, doing, providing childcare, um, or whatever other support that they give.
mhm,
So think about the positives.
mm,
About their parenting, and remember that they raised your spouse who you chose, so they must have done
mm,
something good. If obviously
yeah.
you chose that spouse and obviously you think they're a good person, they raised them, so they must have done something right to bring up that person. So, uh, the advice that comes, it might not all be negative, there might be hopefully some that you agree with. So it's not
Mm,
all, um let's say, hopefully you shouldn't all be disagreements. I'm sure there'll be
yeah.
things that you align with and can agree on. But
Yeah.
just, yeah, be kind, think of the pros and cons.
Mm,
Remember that they've done it before, even though it was a
mm,
different time, and it can be difficult.
yeah.
'Cause it's like you said, they might have raised a child, but like I said, every experience is unique and
Okay.
your child is different. The
Mhm,
times are different. So it can be tricky. But yeah, when
mhm,
speaking to them, try to be kind, try to use hikmah
yeah.
and try to be positive about it. I think that would be the first point. I think the second point is really, really important one actually. And it's make sure your partner leads things. So if you're
Mm,
delivering a message or if you, whatever it may be to your in-laws, something that you know that they probably won't like, such as, I know a big one is visiting when you're first given birth. Everybody wants to visit, everybody wants to see the baby, but if you're not
yeah.
in a state, applying those boundaries is really important, but
Yeah.
be equally awkward because
Mm,
it's their grandchild,
mhm,
they feel like there's a slight entitlement there that they feel, which is understandable to an extent, that they feel like you want to see a grandchild, and it's lovely and it comes from a good place, but
mm,
I think, uh, if you're not feeling a certain way, it should be communicated. But stuff like that, that was an example, I think should, um, be given, the message should be sent through your partner, because it's their parents, you
mm,
know. If they deliver the message, if you deliver the message, they might harbor resentment. It might make things awkward,
mm,
and even after the conversation, things might be there might be a tension there. Whereas if your partner leads things, it's their child. They can't be angry at them for too long, you know.
mm,
So I think make sure you've communicated with your partner exactly the message that you want to deliver, the boundaries that you want to apply, and let them deliver the message. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Yeah. So that's the second point. I think the third point is be firm on the things that are important to you. So this goes back to boundaries. So whether that be you don't want them to have sugar, you don't want to have screen time, you don't want them you have a routine, whatever that may be. I think being firm, I think that's from my experience, what from myself, but also from other people I've spoken to, is the most difficult thing. Like, it's such a tricky one, like getting people to, because for some people it's like not that deep, like, oh, it's just watching TV, like it's just only, for a few minutes, like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, or it's only one sweet, or but if these things are important to you, then they have to be communicated. And I think that's really, really important to be firm with them things, because there are going to be times, most likely. Sorry, I've got you talking about tonsillitis. I've got a very sore throat today. That's
I
why.
think there's something going around, There was something going around a bit more down south, and I think it's come up here.
Yeah, so excuse me if I keep pausing. But
It's fine.
yeah, so what was I saying? Last time I trail left though. Yes, more often than not, they're going, it's gonna happen. Where I know in my experience, like, screen time's a thing. And I live in a joint family, so TV is gonna be on in a room. So that exposure is sometimes quite upsetting, but like I said in the previous point, you've got to weigh up the pros and the cons. Go on.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Where do you balance the boundaries that your in-laws might have overstepped in terms of like one sweet or anything compared to like maintaining that relationship?
Expand that question. What do you mean?
Like what does it look like to you? Like how important do you think it is? Like if in-law overstep their boundary, like what's more important, like in certain situations, like them overstep the boundary and maintaining that relationship or keeping that boundary up?
It's such a tricky one, because for me, I think the issue of the less like young yet, so things like sweets and weaning and stuff isn't too much of a problem yet. But the screen time is a big thing, because he is exposed to screens, and something that I personally like. Not saying that each to their own, and not saying that's one right way, but for me personally, something that I want to avoid for now. Like Allah knows what's what the case will be later on as he gets older. But for now, I'd rather avoid it. But I do live in a joint family, and I do have to consider that other people live in the house. And so when they're watching TV and Abdullah sees it, it's very, very difficult. And you do try to maneuver them, sit them in a certain way, but now he's mobile, he's crawling. So the first thing he'll do is just run up to that TV and start tapping the TV. It's massive, it's huge. Obviously, it's going to draw attention to a child, right? And so it is a difficult one, and it's one that I'm navigating my way through now. So I don't really have an answer for you in that sense. It's very, very tricky. It's upsetting as well, because there's a frustration there, because they're not doing it intentionally. They're not doing anything. In fact, they're just going about their daily lives. You can't expect them to stop, just because you have that opinion. But at the same time, you don't want your child to be exposed to that. So it's a very, very frustrating situation. Yeah, I'm not sure.
That's fine. I feel like I've derailed the conversation. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's a very, very good point. But I guess I'm still quite early in my journey.
Oh, for some context, Abdullah's going to be 1 in 32 days. So
Yeah,
that's
I
how,
know it doesn't feel like
young he is.
A whole year, but I still feel like I'm very, very much a new mom, navigating through like early days of parenting. So yeah, it's frustrating, but you've got to keep your head on and remember that what people's intentions are. And yeah, that's it really. And you just got to do what you can. I have heard from other people though, the same frustrations. Theirs mainly lies in like sweets and sugar. I think there's probably where I'd draw the line, because having a TV on in the house is having a TV on, have the TV on anywhere, but intentionally giving the child something that their parent doesn't like. I think that's where I would have to say something, actually. Obviously with hikmah and with respect, but to be firm and say, look, I don't give my child XYZ, salt, sugar. So like, please don't give them sweets or whatever, ice cream or whatever it may be. I'd like to think I'd be able to like let them know and place that boundary there. But yeah, it's a tricky one. But like I said, be firm with things that are important to you. If they're important to you, stick to your guns. Don't let people like make it out that it's not a big deal. If it's a big deal to you, then it is a big deal, I would say. And so you have your own family values, and they have to be communicated with your in-laws or with your parents, in the viewpoint of the child's needs. And remember, it's remembering that you understand and having the confidence. Because often as a new mum, you can doubt yourself and be like, well, these people have raised, 5, 6 kids, and they're grandparents to other children. But remember that like I said, every child is different, every child is unique, and you are the mum. So, and it's ultimately your responsibility. You're responsible, you're accountable. So if you believe that that's best for the child, try your best to stick with it and communicate that, I would say. So what were you going to say? Sorry, you going to say something?
Well, I was going to ask you a question, which was, so with conversations with your in-laws, obviously, like, situations vary. Like, your mother-in-law is a little bit older than some people's mother-in-laws. But how important is it, like, in terms of having that conversation with the in-laws about raising kids when you're pregnant, but even for people that aren't married? And you know how you'll ask your spouse, like, it's one of those questions you ask when you're getting to know someone, where it's like, how would you raise your children? Do you think it's important to ask how their parents would raise your children as well?
Cracking point. Yeah, that's a very good piece of advice, I would say, because I know that we discussed certain things about the raising of children that were really, really important to us. So yeah, I guess that's a really, really good point. I think discussing those things, and actually just not even with regards to parenting, but getting to know somebody in with the intention of marriage, seeing how they're raised is really, really good point, actually. It's not something that had occurred to me, but I imagine it can give you like a really good insight into their personality and who they are, really. So yeah, I think it's a really, really good point. So yeah, but I think, like I said, it's a tricky one. So being clear, being respectful, being firm, and letting your husband take the lead if it's in-laws, I think, are the main points that we can take from that part of the show. But Sarah, have we got any comments before we continue on to the next part?
This is really surreal because I keep forgetting that we're not just having a phone call.
Yeah, it just feels
my mind keeps slipping into the fact that we're just on the phone to each other, and I'm like, oh no, that's not the case.
Actually in the studio. Sister Sarah, any comments? No comments as of yet. No problem. Before we move on, I wanted to drop those books. So we mentioned the one recommendation. I'm sitting on the floor and I feel old because my knees have stiffened up. We mentioned The Empowered Wife by Laura Doyle. Fantastic book. Even if you're not married, it's just really goes into depth on the topic of, like, it talks about female psychology and female relationships, as well as obviously the relationship of being a spouse. So really, really good book. Definitely recommend that. Two that are on my reading list. I have forgotten one of them. Let me see if I can Google it. One of them is, I took a picture on my phone. We mentioned this in a few, I think it was last week or the week before show, and it was the book I Wish My Parents Read by Philippa Perry. I know Miriam said that she'd started reading that. Oh, she'd read it? I'm not sure. And I've started reading it or listening to an audiobook. And so far, fantastic. So that's another book I would recommend. And then another book, actually, if I can find it, not so much about being a mum, but one that I saw online that actually looked really good and a bit more on the parenting parenting side was it's one that I've just recently purchased. It's How to Raise a Hafiz. And I know the surname is Khatun, but I can't remember the first name. So what I'll do is I'll try and get Sister Sarah, our producer, to put it on and post it on our social media later on, so that you can share those links. Because actually, they look, like I said, they're the ones on our TBR to be read list that looked really good and that have been recommended to me. So yes. So yeah, we're reaching the end of well, not quite yet, but almost the end. And it's been an interesting one actually. I hadn't planned on doing a show this year until somebody suggested it. And there's been some interesting moments of reflection, really beautiful shared experiences, I think, that even me, as already having a child, if I was to be blessed with another one, I would definitely be able to take from. So yeah, some really, really good points. We've discussed how to maintain our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health. And I think now we're approaching literally the last few days. Eid could potentially, be tomorrow, subhanAllah. It's just really, really a time to reflect, and just a reminder really that it's for those that are like myself experiencing their first Ramadan with a child, not to feel overly guilty. As we mentioned in the first show, that if you do your day-to-day that may seem mundane and may seem what's the word, like just mundane, I guess is the best word. Remember that if you're doing it with the right intention, these can be forms of ibadah. Changing your child's nappy, burping them, giving them a bath, feeding them, all these things, washing the dishes, cleaning the house, hoovering. If you do them for the sake of Allah, they can become a form of ibadah for you. And that's really, really important reminder, because as we approach the end, I was thinking today about how this didn't seem as productive as other Ramadans. I wasn't able to go to the masjid, was able to go to Taraweeh last 10 days, weren't able to, go for Qiyam and things, give people iftar, host iftar, all the things that you do, read Quran, do extra dhikr. It's just, with a newborn, it's just impossible. But a reminder to myself, as well as everybody else, that everything else you're doing, if with the right intention, can be an ibadah, and inshallah, Allah accept that from us. So yeah, so anything else to add for the last part of the show, Hafsa?
I don't know.
Any reflections on being an auntie? Because this is about relationships. So relationship as sister to sister or auntie to nephew. Is there anything that has changed for you?
Honestly, like I can't remember my life without Abdullah in it. I don't remember what it was like. Like my memory is not great. Like I can remember basic things, but like in terms of us, I can't remember anything before you were pregnant.
Yeah,
it's weird. It's like your sibling gets pregnant and has a kid, and that's all you remember of them. It's like that's how it always was. So I don't really know what advice I'd give.
Anything going forward to improve our relationship?
Support your sibling. Like I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and it's not like I'm not a confrontational person, but it's like just let go of like stupid arguments. Like one thing that I noticed is that like you, for example, right, and actually I'm not even talking about you, I'm just talking about women in general, can be irrational, postpartum depression, hormonal, right? If your sister or your aunt or any female in your family has just had a baby and they decide to have a crack at you, be the bigger person and just be quiet.
That's
Like,
fantastic.
there are people that will just like go, oh well, I'm going to answer back, or I'm just going to have a crack back at them, but it's like, it does no good. And I think just like, just be aware, like having basic emotional intelligence and awareness, and like understanding the situation. It gets really intense. Like, I remember when you had Abdullah, it was like you left and then you came back with a baby.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a normal thing, and like it's suddenly like, it's not like a friend, it's not like your sibling's friend that comes over and it's like, oh, they go home and that. It's like this child is now literally a part of this sibling. Like, you, for the rest of your life, chances are you're not going to see the sibling without their baby.
That's it.
And it's just about like being emotionally intelligent. I mean, I know there have been times where like we've had like moments where it's been like, oh my god, like, oh my god, you know what I mean? Like, as any sibling does. But from a personal perspective, and this is not me, being all like holier than thou, but I've gone, you know what? I could easily just talk to you about it later and be like,
You have
I
to.
didn't really like that. That made me a bit sad. But know the time and know the place. If your sibling is like changing a nappy and you're worried that the baby's going to start weeing, now's not the time to be like, this is how I feel.
Yes.
Get the nappy changed, get the baby clothed and fed,
I'm
and then
laughing.
once he's happy, talk about it.
I'm laughing because you can tell these are like
It's
real life
literally what
experiences that have happened. I feel like the rawness in how you're talking, like you're like reliving those
But
moments.
it's experience as well. Like, I know that if I didn't have any nieces or nephews and someone was telling me this, I'd be like, no,
Yeah.
you can have a conversation. No, you can't.
No,
It
you
is
can't.
Russian roulette when that nappy is off.
Yeah.
It
But
is
when
to be or not to be. It's to wet or not to wet.
literally it is Russian roulette, like it is the
Um,
dangerous game.
yeah,
Um,
and also like
well, I
put
remember when
your ego. Oh, sorry.
I'll go for it.
I was gonna say, just put your ego to a side. Like, if your sibling is going, I need you to get me this, this, and this, and this right now. Don't be like, why? Or like, what for? You might not know what it's for, but the mom does.
Yeah, that
If she's asked for a nappy, a dummy, and 3 boysenberries, I don't care what it's for. Get her the boysenberries. She'll have a reason that she needs the boysenberries.
you just wanted to say boysenberry, didn't you?
I like the word boysenberry, but it's a good example. You know what I mean? Like, it
Yeah.
could be some random thing that a lot of us might not know. Like, I don't know, like his favorite book, or like, I remember the first time I learned how to make formula.
Oh yes.
And do you remember? And like, you meant to put the formula in first. You meant to put the water in first, and I filled up 8 bottles with formula first, and it wasted like
That was so
20 scoops of
sad.
formula. It's
Yeah.
like things like that. It's like big, like these things will happen, but just listen to your sibling. I remember telling you, and you were like, "That's not how you do it." Like, can we like go again? And at that point, I want to be like, "No, I don't want to do this again. I want to go to bed." But I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'll just do it.
Actually, that's the point, actually. Like, I think often we take advantage of our family, and we have to remember that they have lives too. They have responsibilities. They have their own lives. They have their own worries. And just because you're there with this baby, the fact that they're helping you is a sadaqah. You know, they don't really necessarily, they obviously in an ideal world, you want your family to, support you, but you can't just be like, for example is like, I really want to go out, so you have to look after the baby. Or like, you're in the middle of the workday and I'm like, you have to make 8 bottles. Like,
Yeah,
that's unfair. So I think that's a very, very good point.
yeah. But it's
Anyway,
just it all comes down to communication. Like, communicate with your siblings. Like, there are certain things I can't do. I nearly said your actual name there, and I'll say to you, I'll go, no, I can't. I can't do this. It's about setting boundaries to yourself. Like, there's plenty of things I'll do for Abdullah, but there are things I like actually can't do, and I'll say to you, I can't do that.
this has now become how to raise a happier aunt.
Come in next Ramadan. Ding.
Yeah. So anyway, we're approaching the end of the show.
Sorry, I spoke for ages.
No, that's fine. That's perfect. Really, really jazakallah khair for coming on and for
It's all
covering
right. I got a chance to say boys and berries on air, so my Ramadan is fulfilled.
that. Okay. Well, may Allah accept our du'as and our efforts be rewarded. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to use this as a fresh start. Like I said, it's not the end of something, it's the beginning. And to keep going, inshallah. May Allah increase us in knowledge and love for our deen. Ameen. Allah accept this from us. and, you know, allow us to... Have I just disconnected? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I've disappeared. Hang on, technical issues. There we are. I mean, and Allah allow us to reach next Ramadan. And hopefully be able to do better as always. That's always what we're striving to do better.
Yeah.
Hope everybody has an absolutely beautiful Eid. I know we have potentially a few days left, but this is the last show of this year. And I just want to say Jazakallah khair for all my guests that I've been on. Allah reward you and accept it from you. Allah make it easy for you. Allah make it easy for all the new mums out there, or mums to be. And remember that you're not alone. As isolating as it may feel, there are people around. You just have to find them, as easy as it may sound. Reach out to people, whether that be friends, family, or professionals. Reach out and know that this is a big blessing, even though sometimes it may not feel like it. And there's reward in it. So yeah, that's the end of the show. We'll wrap it up. I'm sad to say, but it's been amazing. So assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, see you next year.
What us?